welcome to the TechRecruit Podcast. Today on our show, we have the very popular TimSackett with us, who was actually voted HR's most influential professional. So welcome, TimSackett.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yes, it's very exciting. So, Tim, you have a lot of things going on your plate. And I think when I first spoke with you, I think it was about 5 months ago, you were telling me some of the things that you're up to. And I just gasped at one point and I said, how do you have time for all the things that you're doing? And you're also a father.
I know. Yeah. Probably not the best father. No. Yeah, I think I'm not a big guy into the whole hustle porn culture either. Like where we think oh, I sleep 3 hours a day and you just have to, blah, blah, blah. I'm efficient, I work effectively. I think one thing I found early on, I think people look at the amount of writing I do and they're kind of overwhelmed by that. And when I started writing, I found I had a skill that I didn't know I had. I can write and write. I can produce content very quickly, probably much quicker than most people. So that really helps from that standpoint, because I think that so many people will write like a blog post of, 500 words, 800 words, and like, oh my gosh, it takes me a week. And I can literally kick something out in 15 or 20 minutes. So it's just a different skill set that I'm sure I was born with it, but then through practice, 10 years of writing, stuff like that, you just kind of learn that. So, that helps a lot. And then, I have a blog post that's one of my most read. That's like, I think it's a complete load of crap when someone says they work 80 hours a week. And I will have people comment, there's probably 100+ comments on that blog post about people screaming at me that I work 80 hours, blah, blah, blah. And I know there's actual people that work 80 hours, but most people say they work 60 hours or 80 hours, and they really don't. They work half that, but they say they work that. And so I don't work a crazy amount of hours, but I might work a full 60. I spend a lot of nights and weekends doing writing and catching up on emails and doing all this other stuff with associations and stuff like that. So there's definitely a time commitment that you have to put in. But I also feel like there's this, like you said, oh, you're the most, followed person on Twitter or HR influencer, all this stuff. Influential. I got this little, in my mind, it's probably the Midwest upbringing. I have this little window of time that I can be this micro celebrity in HR. So I'm trying to take advantage of it and do as much as I can. And I have a wife of 25 years and that supports me with that. So that's awesome. I write on my own blog, TimSackett.com, every single day. And I've been doing that for about 8 years now.
Is that the TimSackett project?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And my buddy Chris Dunn is the one who found me and got me writing. He's the founder of Fistful of Talent. He also named the TimSackett project. And there's kind of a funny story behind that in terms of just I didn't really want to do my own blog. And he kind of twisted my arm and said, we'll just call it a project. And then if you decide, you don't want to do it after 90 days, we'll just say the project ended or whatever. Right. Okay. And that was 8 years ago. And so he got me, him and I are the only ones I know that probably write every single day in our space of recruiting and HR. And definitely write more about recruiting than HR, but in leadership and all kinds of stuff. I literally will write just about anything at this point. The audience is kind of used to that from me. I think when you first start out blogging, you try to be very specific to, what your audience is, what you want to do. And after a while, it's kind of like podcasts. I think people, if they like it, they come back and they kind of like it for being a part of the conversation. And sometimes you might talk about tech recruiting. Sometimes you might talk about whatever, shopping or something. Who knows? They come back for the conversation because they feel like they're a part of this community, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so important. I think one of the goals that seems to be on everybody's plate is having more of a brand. And to do that and being more influential, it's all about your knowledge and imparting that knowledge. And so the ability to sit down and write and have it be something that you feel is meaningful can be something very personal. And the ability then to just do it consistently, that is a project. And was that sort of your goal going into it? Was that the project?
Yeah, it was definitely personal branding at a point. And what happened though, and I'm still working to come out of this, is because I will go to like a conference and I'll speak and I'll get off and somebody will say, "Oh gosh, like, you know, that was awesome." And like, what do you do? And as at that point you're like, gosh, if I failed at personal branding, that you don't know what I do. And they go, well, no, 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 I know that you write and you speak and, you know, the book and all this stuff. That's awesome. But like, you actually just do that to make money. And I'm like, well, no, I have a full-time job. I run a staffing firm in Michigan and all this stuff. And then I'm like, oh, like I've totally failed. Or what really happened was my personal brand became bigger than my corporate brand. And so now I'm working on how do I
Interesting.
bring those together and leverage those, because I can get into the office of almost any HR leader, TA leader in corporate America, and get in front of them and have a really good conversation. But they're having me in their office because of my personal brand, not because I'm the staffing vendor.
Yeah. Yeah. And that tends to sell itself in a way, doesn't it? Because you have that sort of star quality about you.
Well, you would hope, but not as much as you think, right? Like sometimes they think, well, gosh, you're doing all this other stuff. Are you really going to have time for us? And then there's that kind of realization of like, you know, I'm not the one doing recruiting, right? Like I have teams of recruiters that are doing the recruiting. I'm just the one, you know, that's on the top of the pyramid here for all intents and purposes. So, but I've actually had that. I've had that feedback where I was talking to, you know, a TA shop about a project and they were just like, well, we're not sure if you're going to have like the time to focus on us. And I'm just like, for one is like, I'm not the one that is going to be focusing on you. I have like all these other people that will be focusing on you. It's not about me. But you know, that's one of the things you learn when you start blogging and speaking and doing this is people don't want to hire your company. They want to hire you. Right. And that's hard to scale. And so there's always that issue at play as well.